Welcome back, guys. We have a new season and we have a new selection pack, and this obviously means that there is once again time for the 5 best decks that you can take to the ladder and reach Master 1 with this month and until the beginning of next month when the new selection pack comes out. So my personal number 5 this month will be Tenpai Dragons. On one hand, Tenpai Dragons will get weaker and weaker since they have received even more hits over time, but there is another effect happening that if less people are playing in Tenpai Dragon or any going second deck, then you will often just go a second, which is what you want. People want to go first, will let you go second, and then you have what you want as the Tenpai player. This is an advantage. So if less players are playing Tenpai because it is a weaker deck and it is a weaker deck, then this somehow benefits you so that you will gain an advantage, obviously up until a certain point. At the moment there are also a lot of bestials in the meta, which Tenpai frankly doesn't really care about because all of the important monsters are fire monsters. We are playing in this specific list a more board breaker focused variant. I think that if you want to play the deck at an optimal point, you will want to play this Blaster and Gold Sarcophagus at 2 package, since you can go Gold Sarcophagus into the Blaster and then at either the Chandra or the Pydra. Otherwise you will see that you will often have the problem of bricking on hand traps, or you will only have board breakers. You obviously play a lot of mulch armies. You can play even more Parodias if you wanted to. You could also consider playing more bestials, maybe minusing this Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. It depends on what you are facing on the ladder. Honestly, can be very nice against the Fiendsmith stuff though. So at the moment you will see a lot of Blue Eyes players and a lot of Fiendsmith running around, but once again Snake Eyes is on the rise, which the bestials are not that great against. So you can make an argument for more bestials, but you could also make a counter argument for maybe not increasing the amount of bestials. Then again, I think that Tenpai Dragon is a well situated still, and you never have to forget the fact that this is one of the decks that you can fastest reach Master 1 just because the games are short. You just start a game and maybe you see your opponent going for a combo, you see that you can't stop him and then just scoop, or maybe you let your opponent play and you can quickly overrun him, making games with Tenpai Dragons quite short. Some people just scoop when seeing, I don't know, a Chandra for example. We can play cards like Dominus Impulse, which is very nice, so having a lot of upside here. But as I already said, there will also be games that you just can't win, and then you can just quickly scoop, which is why this is one of the best decks still to reach Master 1, especially when it comes to the question which deck you can use to reach Master 1 the fastest. So if you have your Tenpai Dragons, still go ahead and use them if you want to. I would not really consider getting the deck at this point, even though it's not that expensive. You will need a lot of hand traps. If you have the hand traps though, this is not a problem. Otherwise, the engine is not that expensive anymore since a lot of the Ultras have already been hit. Sangan Kaiman, Tenpai Dragon Chandra. I think Tenpai Dragon will be relevant for a while now, and if even less players are playing the deck, that means that you can more successfully play it. You can also combine this with the new complete Fiendsmith package and maybe some bestials if you wanted to, also an option. But there are definitely stronger decks on this list and we will talk about them now. My number 4 is a deck which is very flexible and has been around for such a long time now. It is quite ridiculous. This is one of the first decks. I might be the first deck that I have invested my gems in. When I started playing the game, Branded Despair was at its highest point together with Sword Soul. Even though I managed to reach Diamond 1, this was the maximum you could reach at that time with Sword Soul, not with Branded Despair, since Branded Despair is way more complex. But Branded Despair is still super strong. Once again, we have space for bestials. They want to be in here because our engine wants them, Bestial Saronir especially, so that's quite nice into this current meta. We are playing a 60 card list that is mainly focused on going second. As you can see, we don't really play anything like Maxi or Ash Blossom. You can also run a more hand trap heavy version, but you can see we're also playing a lot of board breakers, forbidden droplets, super polymerizations, which the super poly at the moment is very nice, especially into something like a Blue Eyes, very good, and you will definitely face a lot of Blue Eyes still on the ladder. This is just super solid, this deck is, but you will have to understand how to use this deck optimally. You could also play the DD Vice King, or not DD Vice King, the DDD monster here. Let me quickly show it to you that you can use to lock your opponent if you wanted to go for that kind of playstyle. If you want to go for that, you will need to play the DD Vice King Requiem, not DD Vice King Caesar, obviously, that you can then resummon with Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. But you could also use your Albion the Sanctifier Dragon to summon something like the Mirror Jade. A very strong deck and quite consistent, even with the 60 card build, especially especially with that Grassy Screener. For more consistency, we are running Allure of Darkness. And I have to say that one of the most fun times I had playing on the ladder was a few seasons ago. I guess it was more than a few seasons ago, honestly, like 5 or 6 seasons ago, maybe even more, where I played a going second branded desperia list up to Master 1. This was one of the funnest times I had ever on the ranked ladder, because it was just so cool playing into the board going second, which in my opinion is one of the coolest. And you can let me know in the comments whether you have the same feeling or what your stance on this is. But one of the coolest experiences in Yu-Gi-Oh, in my opinion, is playing into the opponent's board, going second, breaking the board and winning the game. Not necessarily with Tenpai Dragons, because they are created to be going second basically, so they are a bit unfair when going second, and this deck definitely is not really created to be going second. But if you can manage this with board breakers, it's just so fun. It's just such a rewarding experience, and branded desperia has definitely endured the test of time. We have important pieces back like the Aluba, like a branded opening, and so I still think that this is one of the strongest decks that you can play, and my number 4 for this month. Number 3 will be awarded to this new Fiendsmith Fiendsmith Bestial Primite control list. There are a lot of different versions that you can play. This list is from the Decade tournament that he held on the day that the new pack came out, and Nicky Boy managed to grab first place with this specific list. This I have been playing up until this point. I really like this. It definitely is not as strong as the other 2 decks I will show you in a second, and I think between this number 3 spot and the number 2 and 1 spot, there's definitely a big gap in my opinion, but this is kind of nice. The idea is to control the game. You have a lot of recurring engines. If you can get your Primite Dragon Ether Barrel into play, you can reset your Drill Beam all the time. You have your Fiendsmith stuff in your graveyard that you can use once again. You have your Lacrima that you can use for the new Fiendsmith and Paradise interruption combo. Often I will end up on a DD Wave King High Caesar, having the interruption in the graveyard and then maybe a Drill Beam, which, and this is a weak point of the deck for sure, sometimes it's not enough to stop the opponent. This is kind of like Blue Eyes Primite, in which you also want to stop the opponent and then win through the grind game, but it's not as good as Blue Eyes Primite in my opinion, but a very fun deck, and in my opinion one of the best and coolest ways to use the entire Fiendsmith stuff. We are playing the White Dustin, which is a normal monster, and then a Psy Frame Driver, which we can combine with the Gamma, but is also just a 2/5 attack monster, and we also have the opportunity to make good use of our Primite's Raw second effect, where we can banish a normal summon monster with greater or less attack, or equal or less attack than one of the normal monsters we have in grave. In this case, the Psy Frame Driver. We are playing recursion cards like the Constellar Ptolemy M7. Otherwise, this extra deck is very tagged to Fiendsmith. We have a lot of space, which allows us to play double Fiendsmith Requiem. Very nice. Other than that, nothing too fancy. We have the Bestial engine in here, quite a heavy one, I would say. Bestials are very good right now. Establishing the branded Regained will gain you a lot of advantage. So we have 3 engines that will gain advantage throughout the game via Regained, via Primate Drill Beam, and via the Fiendsmith stuff being in your graveyard. And sometimes Fiendsmith can just be enough to skip one turn of your opponent, and then you have the follow-up in the graveyard. I am choosing to play, or in this case Nicky Boy chose to play Ghost Dog and Snow Rabbit. I also had this in my list, which is very strong, especially against Blue Eyes, obviously, but also against other options, which is why I think this is a must-play at the moment. I have played on the stream a variant with triple Lacrima, the Crimson Tears, and Bestials without the Primate stuff. If you want to play without the Primate stuff, you could definitely go for a triple Lacrima and then more Bestials, since then you have your normal summon still open. Obviously, this is your prime normal summon, prime, haha, Primate. If you want to go for the Primate engine, and if you want to go for the Primate engine, you want to go into your Fiendsmith engine via something like the Roar, or maybe something like the Primate Lordly Lord, or obviously via your Fiendsmith track, which is why we are playing this at 2, just to have more access to our Fiendsmith engine. And now let me show you after this place 3, sorry, which my number 2 deck list is. And my number 2, and this has not really changed over the last few months, is still Snake Eyes. No big surprise here, we now have the entire Fiendsmith package here, which makes the deck better. There is also an option, I'm not quite sure how this works, it's with the Infernal Flame Banshee, and also with, I think, Light Charmer or something, that gives you in theory the option to bridge from your Fiendsmith engine into your Snake Eyes engine. This is a bit expensive though, and we also have the opportunity to use our other engines here, so I don't think it's quite necessary, and we also have a very tight extra deck, so we can't really afford to put in a lot of other cards in here, honestly. But yeah, this is Snake Eyes, Millennium Snake Eyes. You could also go ahead and play the Asamina Snake Eyes if you wanted to, which is a bit more heavy on the light and dark. So if you see a lot of bestials, you might not want to do this and better go for these earth monsters here that are obviously not really hurt by bestials. Then again, the rest of your engine kind of is, especially the Fiendsmith stuff and like your Diabell stars and something like this. But obviously I don't have to explain to you why this deck is so strong. It has a very consistent and good engine that can make one of the most oppressive boards going first. You have a lot of hand trade options in here. You have a lot of different starters, and if one of your starters gets stopped, for example, your Snake Eye Ash via an Infinite Permanence, and you might have a Diabell star, you might have Millennium star, you have your Fiendsmith stuff that you can extend the play with, you have a Bonfire that can go into the Poplar, which is the same as the Snake Eye Ash. So this is the strong point of the deck and has always been the strong point, the fact that you have so many different pushes when your opponent stops you. So a hand trap will normally not stop this deck. Going second into a board, it is also a good deck, not as good as it was before when we had the combination of Promethean Princess, Raging Phoenix and Zealantis, which was a really strong kill option. You can still play this, but once again your extra deck now, especially with the Fiendsmith stuff, is very tight and you might not be able to fit this in here. Not a lot of people are playing it, but you can if you wanted to. Yeah, Snake Eye is one of the strongest decks at the moment. They will either have to hit something like the OSS, or maybe they will just introduce, and this is my guess, but I will talk about this in a video coming out tomorrow, they will just have to release Malice or Ryziel, then people will flock to these new decks, and then I think Snake Eyes will be gone for good because no one really wants to play this. Then in the future maybe this will come up once again if there are supporting engines like, for example, Yummy that can be played together with Snake Eyes, but only maybe. We'll have to see what is done to Snake Eyes, but still super strong, and I would say enjoy the deck if you really enjoy playing it. As long as you can. And then my number one, no big surprise here, in my opinion, is still a Primite Blue Eyes. Once again, I said this before, I think it's a way better control deck than is the Primite Bestial control deck with Fiendsmith that I've shown you before. We can play Dominus Purge, super strong card. We have so many recursion options via our Drill Beam, via our True Light. We have the Primite engine, super strong. We can play an in-engine Bestial, which is quite nice. And then, and this flew under the radar of some people, we have also, in addition to the deck, which is super good, the Light Storm Dragon. You can make this hard with your Blue Eyes and a tuner, but you can also tag out into this via your Spirit Dragon. And it says if this got a special summon, you can target spells, traps up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard, +1, destroy them. So normally this will be 2, but might also be 3, depending on how many Blue Eyes are in your graveyard. And this also has another option if this cat is destroyed by Bad Luck card effect, which obviously it will be when you summon it with the Spirit Dragon. Then you can target one spell trap in your graveyard and set it, but you cannot be activating it unless you control a normal monster. So this is a crazy good card for Blue Eyes, definitely a good update for the deck that this deck was still missing, and which funnily enough makes this better deck into the mirror, because you can destroy your opponent's True Light, which then destroys the entire deck. You could counter something like a Primite Lordly Load, which is a very essential card for the deck. But yeah, this deck is just super well rounded. It's very good going first. It has a good amount and especially a good ratio of hand traps to engine, or board breakers, however you want to play this. I think hand traps is the better option. So this is something that is, in my opinion, something that is only happens only if you play Primite Blue Eyes, is that you have a lot of really nice hands. Normally you have hands with like 3 hand traps, and then you have 2 starters, maybe a Primite Ether Barrel, and then you also have your Wishes for Eyes of Blue. All of these hands that I'm drawing with this deck are always quite nice. Rarely ever do I see hands where I think, what is this? This deck is just super good in terms of engine to non-engine ratio, and extremely strong. Once again, I also think that we will not see any hits to this deck. I really think this. I think they will release Ryziel and Malice, and this deck will then be a bit in quotation marks power crept, because Ryziel is especially good into this deck, and Malice, if we can't really play the Artifact Lancia, the card that basically says your opponent cannot banish cards, or no one can banish cards, we can't really play this in our main deck since this is best of 1. So these decks will be very dominant and will take over the top spot here from Primite Blue Eyes Fiendsmith, or it's called Primite Blue Eyes Fiendsmith because I had Fiendsmith in it before. It's just Primite Blue Eyes, but for now this is definitely the most well-rounded deck, the strongest deck, and I love the fact that we have Blue Eyes being the most powerful deck. You can let me know in the comments what your opinion on this is. Thanks for being here. Obviously we will see each other in the next one tomorrow. I will discuss the possibilities or the possible cards that we will get in the next selection pack next month. So tune in for that. This will be very interesting, and until then, bye.